This episode of Fluid Power Forum is sponsored by IFP Motion Solutions Incorporated, the leader at engineering electronics into fluid power distribution. IFP spans the 13 central states from Minnesota to Texas. For more information, visit ifpusa.com. Welcome to Fluid Power Forum, a podcast of the National Fluid Power Association. I'm your host, Eric Lanke, and it's my job to interview interesting people who are moving fluid power technology forward. If you'd like to be part of the show, you can follow us on LinkedIn. You'll find us there at the National Fluid Power Association. And make sure to share those interesting and innovative uses of fluid power with our hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. If you see an interesting application of fluid power and you want to learn more about it, you just share it on social media with that hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. And you just might hear it discussed on a future episode of Fluid Power Forum. Also, please subscribe to our show. You'll find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and all the other popular podcatching services. Wherever you find us, go ahead, subscribe to the show, and then give us a quick rating. Those ratings really do help promote the show and allow more and more of our friends in the industry to join in on these important conversations. On today's show, my guest is Greg Shtrahman, Business Development Manager at Marzocchi Pumps USA. With a focus on high-performance gear pumps and motors, Marzocchi continues to innovate and push the fluid power industry forward. Greg is here to talk about the latest in pump innovation, from noise reduction, efficiency, and continued progress in electrification. Marzocchi Pumps will also be exhibiting at the upcoming ConExpo-Con trade show, and so we'll be discussing their exhibit as well as that show's importance in the fluid power industry. So, Greg, welcome to Fluid Power Forum.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you on the show. I remember not too long ago, you and I were on stage together at our economic conference, and you helped us talk about some technology trends going on in the fluid power industry.
Yeah, that was a great experience.
Yeah,
just recently. Yeah,
and so your expertise, especially in the pump world, is going to be useful for our conversation today as well, I'm sure.
I'll look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our listeners, a little bit better than I just did. So what is your background? How'd you find yourself working at Marzocchi Pumps?
Sure. Well, I've spent almost now 30 years in the fluid power industry. Before Marzocchi Pumps, I started my career with Parker Hannifin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 6 years at Parker. I then joined Monarch Hydraulics, which was later on purchased by Bucher. Right. So I was with Bucher Hydraulics for almost 13 years. And I joined Marzocchi Pumps in late 2013. And I've been with them ever since.
And
I've had multiple roles with Marzocchi.
And your educational background, Greg, is you're a mechanical engineer, or what's your background there?
I'm not actually. It's kind of interesting.
Okay.
So my undergraduate degree is in economics.
Okay.
And my graduate degree was an MBA focusing on international business, international trade.
Interesting.
And,
okay.
Political economy.
So when did you first encounter fluid power technology?
I first encountered fluid power technology when I worked as an intern for a hydraulic distributor between my undergraduate degree actually and my graduate degree. It was the job market was kind of thin then. I had an opportunity. I really liked it. I worked for a distributor. I was lucky because I worked for a distributor that had both pneumatics and hydraulics. Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to pick that up and got my first taste of it with real taste for hydraulics with Parker Hannifin as a territory manager.
Yeah. Well, once you enter the fluid power industry, you never leave, right?
That's right. You can't get out.
Yeah.
As Al Pacino said.
In a good way. Hopefully in a good way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a great way. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't realize that about your background. So that's interesting. So, well, then tell us a little bit more about Marzocchi Pumps as a company. pumps, obviously, is what they do, but how would you describe the company?
The company is quite interesting, very interesting history we have, Eric. So it started in 1949,
Uh-huh.
and we actually first started in the suspensions, making suspensions for high-end motorcycles, and we then, a couple of years later, developed hydraulic gear pumps. So for many years, Marzocchi Pumps had two divisions, a hydraulic division and a suspension division.
Hmm.
In 2008, we sold the suspension division to an American company called Tanaco, I think, who's now owned by Fox, and we strictly concentrated on hydraulic gear pumps. But we've been making gear pumps for over 70 years, so quite an interesting history of the company. We're privately held, though in Italy we are traded on the Italian stock
Oh,
exchange.
okay.
Yeah.
And your headquarters is in Italy, correct?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we're located in Bologna. Uh, we're kind of unique company. So we have two plants just outside of Bologna, and we're mostly completely vertical manufacturer, which is quite unique these days. So there's very little that we outsource. We machine our own gears.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We own our own high pressure die casting plant, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
The only thing that we really outsource are the seal technology, any seals, and obviously any cast iron. Let's say cast iron forgings are outsourced as well.
Okay. And these all go into your pumps. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
and I know
Yeah.
you make a variety of different pumps, but pumps is the product, right? There aren't other components that you're making?
Well, we do make hydraulic gear motors as well.
Okay.
So our to be a little bit more defined in what we do, we make everything from micro hydraulic gear pumps to hydraulic gear motors, and also I'll get into it further later on in
Yeah.
our conversation. We make helical gear pumps as well.
Right. And like, where would we find Marzocchi pumps out on the marketplace? Are we looking at construction machines, or like where's the best use case for these?
Very horizontal market. So a wide variety of industries.
Yeah.
Anything from the automotive industry is still pretty large for us, though it's slowly kind of decreasing just because of what's happening with automotive technology. But ag industry is very large for us. Off-highway equipment, the mobile market in general,
Hmm.
construction machinery, wide varieties of industries, medical beds,
Oh, really? Okay.
ambulance cots,
Yeah.
robotics, wide variety of industries, Eric, just because of so many types of gear pumps that we make.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the specifics then. So you just mentioned the helical pumps technology. Why don't we start
Right.
there? Tell us a little bit about some of the unique things that Marzocchi is bringing to the table in that space.
Sure. So as we know, helical technology itself has been around a long time. What was very unique for Marzocchi when we first started producing the helical gear pumps, and we got our two global patents.
Hmm.
So um, we have a patent. One patent is the unique profile of our gear, and one is in our dual compensation. We have internal dual piston compensators, and that's what makes our technology very unique. Is that we found out when we were producing the pump, um, the axle forces that act against the gears tend to drive the gears in different directions. And that's why we came up not with a single, but a dual compensation system, which is very unique, which enables us to hit very extreme environments.
Hmm.
Let's say very low RPMs at very high efficiencies. To give you an example,
Yeah.
we can take our helical pump down to 200 RPM, even lower, at still 94, 95% volumetric efficiency at 200 RPM,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is quite unique.
Yeah.
And we can hit some higher pressures as well. So it's very interesting in the market we've addressed.
So, forgive me for not quite understanding. So, these are piston pump technologies incorporated into the
So,
gear pump, or how?
so it's not piston. yeah, so sorry, let me explain.
Yeah.
So it's not really piston pump technology. We have two little piston compensators
Okay.
in the rear cover of the pump. And basically, they act as a balancing force against the axle forces that are driving the driven gear and the driver gear to opposite ends. So basically, they're little small little compensators,
Okay.
and we actually take some of the pressure from the outlet port, the pressure port, and run it into the compensator sections to enable to have the balancing effect, internal balance effect. So they're not really pistons, but they're called little small little piston compensators is what we refer to them from Italian.
Okay. So there's got to be a lot of advantages to doing that. Does that create better flow, or as you said, you could run it at a high efficiency, even at very low speeds? What are some of the other benefits of that?
Well, some of the great benefits is we're a little bit unique to the market. So if you see some other helical technology in the market today, if they do have compensation, they're usually a single compensator.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we got our second patent is on our dual compensation system. So as one of the things that I mentioned, it enables us to go to a very low RPM at very high volumetric efficiencies and high pressures at the same time, which is quite challenging in a fluid power world.
That's almost an oxymoron, isn't it?
It
Like
is
like low speed but high pressure, right? That's hard to
exactly.
do, right?
It's Eric, it's a great point. It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
There's been some very large companies, rather than naming names, there've been some very large companies that took a stab at these markets, and for many reasons they decided it wasn't quite their market. They found out how difficult this was.
Yeah, you
Right.
must have magic beans in there or something to make that work, right?
The development of process took years, I have to tell you. It was a long process to develop this technology.
Okay.
Uh,
And like,
and another thing, Eric, it lets us address a couple of different things.
please.
Not only the low noise, so about 15 decibels lower, quieter than the quietest pump that you could have out there. In 50 decibels, so average decibel rating of about 40 decibels.
Hmm.
And also it addresses the pressure pulsation. So a lot of the noise is caused by pressure pulsation points that are trapped in between the gears in a standard gear pump.
Right.
And there's virtually no pressure pulsation points, so you really eliminate most of, not all of the noise when the gears are meshing together. The other thing that it does is because the low number of teeth, it reduces the frequency of the pump. And that's very, very important because that's another challenge that a pump is fighting
Yeah.
is not only the noise, but the frequency. So the pump is much more pleasant to listen to, the frequency level.
Well, yeah. So, and that noise issue is, as we know, becoming more and more acute, if you will, because of the electrification of some of the equipment that you're going on, right? So,
Absolutely.
suddenly, not your pumps, I'm sure, but the pump becomes the noisiest thing on the machine when you take away the internal combustion engine and replace it with some sort of electric power system, right? So,
Absolutely.
so is that where you're seeing these pumps being used most frequently on electrified vehicles?
Eric, that's probably our highest growth market.
Yeah.
Biggest potential is electrification. It did surprise us. So when we first developed these pumps, we thought they'd be mostly industrial market, but the mobile market has grown very fast. It's been one of the markets that surprised us the most because, as you mentioned, a lot of the mobile market is going into electrification,
Right.
and as you mentioned, a lot of the functions are steering functions, some suspension, but especially steering when you're using this pump for steering. Everything else, as you mentioned, is electric. So you don't want to hear the hydraulics.
Right.
And it also acts, a lot of hydraulics, as you know, tend to act as a amplifying effect. So it'll amplify the vibration, the noise, the frequency, and this will get into some of your other components. So you eliminate the noise and the amplification right at the source.
So it's not just the volume of the noise; it's the harshness of the noise as well is reduced.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
We call it harmony sometimes.
Oh yeah. Well, you'll have to figure out a way to have the operator like play their music, play their
Yeah,
iPod through the pump then, right? So
that's
it's
right.
somehow harness that, and it can amplify
That's
the
right.
music that
Yeah.
they're listening to. Interesting. So,
Yes.
well,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
we'll continue with the show in just a moment, but first let me share some exciting news about our Fluid Power Forum podcast. We're launching Fluid Power Forum Plus, a premium listener membership offering exclusive content and special event opportunities for our most dedicated listeners. When you sign up for free on the NFPA website, you'll be able to unlock exclusive episodes, live recordings, transcripts, and invitations to private networking events, each offering even greater insights into interesting and innovative applications of fluid power technology. The first of our special events is now being planned for the NFPA Technology Conference being held at the ConExpo-Con Ag Trade Show in March of 2026. Fluid Power Forum Plus members will receive discounted registration for the conference, plus an exclusive invitation to attend our live taping of the podcast there, and a members-only networking reception following that taping. This will be a huge opportunity to gain insights into the innovations happening in fluid power technology and to meet up with fellow listeners and build your network. And that's just the start. More exclusive benefits will be announced soon. To register, head over to nfpa.com/plus. That's nfpa.com/plus. Well, I think you're breaking into something also called micro pumps. You mentioned that, I think, at the very beginning of the conversation. What's that about?
So we've been making micro pumps for a while, but we've expanded our micro pump technology. And there's not, I would say, too many. It's a very difficult technology to make when you're trying to achieve higher levels of volumetric efficiency. So our micro pumps are very small pumps.
Yeah.
They can fit in the fist of your hand. They're very small, usually higher RPMs, can go to higher pressures, and very unique in the market. Our biggest market is probably automotive for that in terms of axle drive differentiation between front wheel and rear wheel drive. And also, we developed new micro pumps for the medical industry. One of our largest markets is medical robots that you see. Some of them are driven by micro hydraulic pumps that are ours, and also the medical bed and ambulance cot industry
Right.
have been very large for us and really growing well.
I was under the impression that the medical beds were almost entirely electrical in terms of their actuation, but that's not the case, evidently. So if you're selling
Yeah,
hydraulic pumps into them, I didn't realize they were hydraulically powered.
some are. So
Yeah.
so there are electromechanical beds, and it depends on the size of the bed. Then you get into a small micro pump driving electric actuator, really. So they're mounted on an actuator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. It must be it would have to be a very self-contained unit, I would imagine, in that environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also on ambulance cots,
Yeah.
they're self-contained and very small. The challenge there is you have a very small size. So you have a very small pump, which is our micro pump, and you have a micro electric motor. So you can imagine that you're trying to get efficiencies out of both. So it's not so easy.
Right. And like, do you think that there are more opportunities for these kinds of products that aren't currently being utilized? Like, where else would this work? I mean, what kind of flow are we talking about coming out of these?
Absolutely. So we're
Yeah.
talking about flows that are about 0.25 to 0.50 cc.
Okay.
So very small. And the opportunities, the greatest opportunities in growth market is that we see is in robotics, actually. So
Right.
obviously biomedical, medical markets, but now as you see, robots are coming more and more visible in industrial marketplace and manufacturing. They're becoming more elaborate. The technology is growing, and this is one of our fastest growing markets.
Great.
For instance, to give you an example, you might see that robot on YouTube that jumps around. It runs,
Yeah.
and I think one of them was made by Boston Scientific,
You're right.
and that uses our O25 micro pumps.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always wondered, like, I think it's Atlas is the one you're referring to. Is that what the one you're talking
That
about? It's called
that's one
Atlas.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, one is a dog, a robotic dog.
Oh,
You might
right.
have seen it.
Yeah. It's like it's always tough to tell like where the hydraulics is on those things because they're so self-contained, right?
Yes,
You kind of have to use the hydraulics there for the power density that you need to get out of those things. So
exactly. You make a good
interesting.
point. Power density is the key term there.
Yeah.
So you're using these micro pumps in an area where you need the power density, you need the horsepower, you need the technology in a very small package, and that's where really the power density comes in.
Well, it sounds like the micropump is an example of, I guess, another big trend, which is the electro pump, like the
Yes,
unit that's both an electric drive and a pump, and maybe an actuator at the same time, right? The
absolutely.
industry has 1,000 different names for what this thing is, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
Marzocchi calls those what, electro pumps?
Well, we call them electro pump combo. We call them combos.
Okay,
So it's electric motor coupled to close coupled to our pump, electric pump. Sorry, our hydraulic pump.
right,
Uh, Now you also have EPTOs, right? So we do also call them EPTO, electric power takeoffs, which
right,
is another product, another market. Um, and as you know, Eric, we've been talking about it in our fluid power meetings and conferences. That is a vastly growing market.
yeah,
I think it's just begun. You kind of have to segment that market into a couple of different levels. There's the very basic market where it could be the backup system on telescopic lifts, for instance,
right,
very basic, like a 12, 24-volt market with just a pump motor, all the way to much more sophisticated, where you see EPTOs, electric power takeoffs for off-highway equipment, right? So that we're growing in that field. We are doing more and more research to come up with electric pump motor products for the off-highway market. We think that's one of the largest growing markets. And we talked about electric trucks, for instance,
right,
is a very big market for us personally.
yeah. One of the things that's fascinating to me about the whole transition, if you will, or the innovation, whatever you want to call it, is that it's really blurring the lines between like what is electric and what is hydraulics, right? So
Right, right.
it's kind of the same thing now, right? It's all part of the same package in many ways. I mean, the reality, of course, is that hydraulics has always needed a prime mover of some kind, and especially in industrial settings, that has been an electric motor more often than not.
That's right.
But we're seeing that move now onto mobile equipment at that same architecture, and it needs to be more compact because of
Yes.
the space consideration. So I guess I'm describing. You guys are working on all of that, right? Right.
Oh yeah.
That's a big piece of that. I mean, where do you see that going and evolving? Or do you think we're just on the cusp of that innovation, or is it well entrenched in the marketplace now, or where do you see that?
I think, Eric, we're just on the cusp of that. If we talk about, for instance, electric trucks,
Yeah.
we're just on the cusp of it. Obviously, the market is larger in Europe, as we saw, but the regulations are changing quickly.
Mm.
The market is growing in the United States. Some of the regulations that we've seen for off-highway equipment and electric trucks and so forth that first started in the United States and California have now been adopted by multiple states. I think they're going to be adopted by more and more states.
Yeah.
And you also see let's say the recycling market and the trucks that are trash trucks and so forth, and
Right.
recycling trucks that are picking up the trash and recycling material.
Yeah.
You see that at 5 in the morning. You might not in the future have those terrible noises waking you up
Right.
at your hotel
Yeah.
or your residential neighborhood
Yeah.
because a lot of them are going electric, right?
Right. And then we're going to need a low noise Marzocchi pump on those on those machines
I hope so.
to keep
Yeah,
those to keep them
yeah.
quiet as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that we're at the leading edge, if you will, of this innovation, and the market will just continue to grow. It sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing I don't want to fail to mention is variable frequency drives.
Oh yeah.
So that's another part of this market, right? Where technology is changing so fast, where you would be using piston pumps before, Eric, and now you're thinking, wait a minute, instead of having a pressure compensated variable volume piston pump with a horsepower limiter, for instance, can we do this with a variable frequency drive
Mm-hmm.
where I can control my pressures, my flows, my horsepower, let's say load sense, all in one system.
Right.
And as the at the beginning it was kind of cost prohibitive. Here's what we're seeing. We're seeing now electrification market where the cost is being slowly driven down. The controls have become more competitive. The motors, the pumps, everything together, and as a package, is become more together. So we think we're just on the cusp of that edge. We think that's has a large potential to keep growing.
Well, I'm sure we'll see lots of examples of that at the upcoming ConExpo-Con trade show. I mentioned in the intro that Marzocchi will be one of many fluid power companies that'll be exhibiting there, I'm sure.
Yes.
What's your perspective? Have you been to that? I'm assuming you've been to that show before, Greg.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us a
Yeah.
little bit
Go ahead.
about what's your impression of that show, and what will people see when they come to the Marzocchi booth if they go?
Well, as anybody, yes, I've been to the show many times. I've been going myself personally to ConExpo for over 20 years. Uh, Marzocchi Pumps has been exhibiting at ConExpo since the mid 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very exciting show. Because it's every 3 years and it's a global show, I think a lot of companies really pull out all the stops. As you know, Eric, you've been to the show many
Yeah.
times,
Right.
to bring all their latest technology. And that includes us, Marzocchi Pumps. We will be exhibiting, of course, to 2026 ConExpo. We're very excited about it. We're going to bring our latest and greatest technology there. That's where you want to exhibit all your latest and technology, your most up-to-date technology. We think it's going to be an exciting show. We're going to exhibit ourselves, our helical pumps that we talked about,
Right.
which is a big driver for electrification of mobile and industrial equipment. Our electro pump motor will definitely be there, and a lot of other interesting things. Things like our hydraulic motor technology. We're going to be showing our speed sensors and other sensor technology that we're going to incorporate in our pumps and our motors.
Mm.
That's going to be brand new for us. We first showed it at the Bauma show this past year,
Yeah.
and we're gonna bring more of that technology to the show.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We encourage, of course, our listeners to make their arrangements to go to that show. It's one of the best parts about it from a fluid power perspective is, yes, you have the dedicated attendees that are coming to the show, but the exhibitors a lot of them are the mobile equipment manufacturers that are using this technology, if you will. So it's a really a great network at that regard.
Absolutely. I highly recommend it. Yes. We look forward to this show.
All right. Well, Greg, is there anything else that any messages you want to leave our listeners with before we sign off?
I'd just like to say, I think, Eric, you made a great point about what's happening with hydraulics as it pertains to electrification.
Mm.
I think our industry has a bright future. I was sitting on our technology panel, and everything that we're proposing, as you know, for the industry today, just shows that hydraulics has a bright future. Let's say as industry and technology are moving together.
Yeah, here, absolutely. That's a great note to end on. The future of hydraulics is bright.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, that is going to wrap things up for this episode of Fluid Power Forum. My thanks again to Greg Shtrahman of Marzocchi Pumps, who has been my guest on the episode. If you want to connect with him, You can do that by dropping him an email, and we'll be sure to put a link to his email address in the show notes for this episode. Remember, if you like our podcast, and we hope you do, please follow us on LinkedIn. You can find us there at the National Fluid Power Association. And please keep sharing those interesting and innovative uses of fluid power with our hashtag #OnlyFluidPowerCan. We truly want to hear from our listeners about the kind of topics you want to hear talked about on the show. Fluid Power Forum is a podcast of the National Fluid Power Association. I'm your host, Eric Lanke, reminding you to join us next time in the forum.